Hey, good morning, everybody. Thrilled you're here. It's nice and overcast today and cooler. A cold front came in, which is delightful. As you can see in my background, we had our tiki torches out last night. It was a lot of fun. Got to hang out and be mellow because it was finally cool enough to be back here. So, why do you care about my woods? You probably don't, but you might care about me. I'm Rita Hickman. I'm a body-mind expert and shiatsu massage therapist, and I help women using Asian medicine and body-mind techniques and the secrets of indigenous cultures and all of their methods and tools and traditions and metaphors and insights and understandings about how the world works. And I help women who are in toxic and narcissistic relationships find themselves again, get back on track. Heal old wounds from the past, from family wounds, heal wounds that are happening currently in their life, and really take back their life from the selfish and self-absorbed world that we live in. In fact, that's what I was thinking about a lot this morning. This morning, I did one of my normal daily rituals. It's part of my healing rituals, which is one of what I call the 5 pillars of being in a really healthy, evolved place, is to have regular healing rituals where you take time. I take time every single morning and give myself time to feel and be present and listen and give myself the things that I need. It can be anywhere from 5 minutes to 45 minutes or a whole day if you're going through a big deal. If something big happened, then it's important to take a whole day if you can. Or multiple days if you have to, in order to do that healing work and be present with it. So I was thinking this morning a lot about the culture of selfishness that our world is in, and how often so many women and men, have been wounded by the self-absorbed and narcissistic people who they're that way because they're wounded too. They just respond to their woundedness in a way that makes things worse rather than better. And that's kind of what makes someone a narcissist. Is we live in a world of the walking wounded, and how we express ourselves, how we express that woundedness can kind of either make us behave in a more narcissistic way or a less narcissistic way. We either use those wounds and learn how to reach out and heal ourselves and heal other people, which is probably why you're here, because you resonate with that. Or, you take it and you use it to dominate and control and unfortunately keep the cycle of woundedness and pain going. So today we're talking about how to not let a narcissist ruin your life. So since we live in a world of toxic people and narcissists and the walking wounded are everywhere, where people are focused on what they need first because it's so uncomfortable for them to be kind or vulnerable or open or present, we really live in a world that's kind of run and directed by a very selfish and narcissistic mindset. So how do you not let this attitude and this energy that's pervasive, that's everywhere, how do you not let the narcissist selfishness ruin your life? So I'm going to start with a little bit of a story. One of the things that I've done, or that I do, is I lead sacred talking circles, and I used to lead quite a bit of them. And Sacred Talking Circle is a ritual, a ceremony that comes from the Ojibwe tradition, but also all sorts of other traditions around the world and throughout the U.S. But mine was Ojibwe, and where people were allowed to come together in a space of love and peace and kindness and share what was on their mind and put it in the fire. And so we would get to some really wonderful, deep, emotional topics, and we were able to go down the rabbit hole and talk about things. And one of the things that came up, actually from a woman who has since passed away, one of the things that came up was her sister had been molested. And she, of course, then took a deep dive into what's all that about. You get curious. You want to know What caused it? Where does it take you? What does it do to somebody? And one of the things that she ran across was that some of the biggest damage to people, to children especially, or anyone who is in that sort of selfish, invasive sort of situation, is that it's not the act itself. It's not the act of, being inappropriately touched, or it's not the movement itself. It's the energy that it's carried out with. So many times in child abuse, especially child sexual abuse, what happens is the ideas and the guilt and the shame and the angst and the conflict and the pain and the anger and the suffering of the abuser, the narcissist, gets imprinted on the person who's being victimized. So when something happens, when something negative happens, then the victim absorbs the energy and the conflict and the things which are coming off of the narcissist. And because typically, it's a child or someone who's, hasn't developed enough yet, our brains keep growing until we're 28. And even when we're older, if we don't have a way to process through all of these feelings which are being imprinted on us, if we don't have a way to process through them, then we carry them. We carry the wounds of the narcissists in our life. And because of that, because we have taken on their shame and taken on their insecurities without a way to work with it, to deal with it, to understand it, to put it into perspective. And that's the biggest way that narcissists end up ruining our lives. It's not because of their actions, it's because of the imprinting of their wounds on us. It's not even just the reminding of our wounds, even though that's a big part of it. But when we're children, there's no reminding. You're a child. So there's an imprinting. That becomes the reality. That becomes the association. Our bodies our nervous systems are crazy in that they create these connections that we associate everything else with. And when we associate things like sex or love or security or safety with really inappropriate things like anger and shame and conflict and abuse and manipulation, it ends up really affecting our lives, not just in the short term, but in the long term, in the lifetime term, unless we actively start to look at it, unless we actively start to heal it. So many times if you have a narcissist in your life as an adult, it's because you had narcissists in your life all along, and that became normal for you. That's what reality was. And narcissist relationships keep us very stuck. They keep us shallow. They keep us from actually getting the things, the love and the kindness and compassion and support that we've always needed. So this is how a narcissist, even if something happened to you before you have conscious memory of it, stays with you. You can't just leave it behind. You can't just compartmentalize it, because it's now an association. It's now a belief, an idea, a feeling that has been imprinted on you. And until you get what you need, what maybe the narcissist needed when they were suffering. That's why they turn to children, because children are typically the safest place that they can get those needs met. And you helped them meet that. But you need to help get your needs met too. Now, as an adult, the problem is that people look at you and they're like, you're not a child, you're an adult, deal with it. We have other things, we have higher priorities, we have more important things going on. And typically then, as an adult, walking wounded, we don't get what we need. It's like the time has passed. We're now supposed to be a higher level, which we're not, because we're still stuck where we had problems. And the only person or the only people who are really able to give you what you need now is you and a very sort of dedicated group of people who've done their own healing work, whether it's close friends or family or psychologists or a coach, whatever it may be. The only people who are able to really be there for you are people who've done their work, who are more healed, and yourself. And yourself is the best resource you have, because you are the one who's with you at 2 a.m. You are the one that's with you at, at noon or at 10 p.m. or midnight. You are the one who's with you all of the time. So how do we start to reverse that? Well, first of all, one of my favorite tricks to work on things is to set aside time. And when I have a thought, a negative thought, let's say, I like to start with the thoughts, because the thoughts are the signposts. They're the guiding light. They're the star to what you really need, to what's really missing. So when you're sitting there and you're upset about something and your thoughts are going rampant about how angry you are at yourself, or guilty, or ashamed, or how you're a loser and this is never going to turn out anyways, when those negative thoughts come up, before they capture you, before they control you, you can set aside time and do a healing with yourself. You can set aside time and finally let yourself get the things that you needed. So, you've been wounded all along. You've been walking around wounded for a very, very long time. And it's time that you started. So what does that look like? What does a healing look like? A healing looks like, I'll give you an example. Let's say I'm sitting there in the morning and I don't feel so good because I'm a little dehydrated and it's morning and I'm not crazy about mornings. And what will come up into my head may be, wow, I'm so tired. Let's say that thought will come up. And it seems like a vague thought, a thought that you could just push away, a thought that you could just ignore. It seems like a perfect thought to, to push through, and you have to get up and you have to do things. But it's those simple little thoughts that keep you away from the bigger hijacking, from getting flooded on a bigger level. So let's say I'm laying there and I say, yeah, I'm really tired this morning. So then you say to yourself, wow, why are you really tired? What's going on? What memory, what experience did you have that you also felt really tired? So I give myself a space to think about things that might have happened in the past, and they'll magically pop up in my head. I'll be laying there and a memory will pop up of when I felt really tired. And I'll sit there and I'll be present with it. I have a memory of me sitting on a bench. I was never one of the really important people because I wasn't Native American, because I, came from an Irish background and more Celtic. And I wasn't one of the cool people. I was one of the women that just sort of blended in sometimes with these groups. And so I wasn't the shaman. I wasn't the one in the middle, leading everybody. And so when I would hang out with these groups of people, I tended to be forgotten. I tended to be, set aside because I didn't look the part, because I wasn't, male, and I wasn't, magical and mysterious. I was just me. And I'd sit there and nobody would care. Nobody would notice. They had much more important things on their minds. They had their wounds that they were dealing with. And that would be really hard for me, because it would remind me of all the times that my needs didn't matter, all the times that I'd been ignored. And this morning, when I was sitting there feeling tired, that memory popped up of me sitting on that bench. And I could be present for myself, for the woman who was sitting on that bench, the girl who was sitting on that bench. And I could give her what she needed. Now, it's these small little healings, the small little thousands and thousands of memories that pop up. But when you start to heal them, when you start to go back and be present with them and give them love and kindness and support and understanding and compassion, all the things that they needed, that I needed when I was sitting on that bench, feeling tired and overwhelmed and alone and sad and like I didn't matter and frustrated and aggravated, I could go and in my mind sit next to her and listen to her and tell her that she's doing great, and remind her that, she's surrounded by people with a lot of wounds and that they're not capable of being present. They're not capable of caring, and they can't even see me. I would give myself that gift. That's the healing. That's the healing. Because remember, trauma is something unexpected, we feel we can't control, and that we don't have any help processing through. We can't process through. So when I was sitting on that bench, I felt helpless. Nothing I could do, really. I didn't think that I could. It was unexpected because, everybody was included. Why was I being excluded? And I didn't have any help at the time to process through it. I was all alone and stuck in my own pain and stuck in my own memories at the time. So I could go back in my head this morning and heal that and give myself that miracle and that miracle healing, And it led me into the bigger understanding of we live in a world that's very, very wounded. So when you have a regular practice where you can love and be compassionate to yourself and give yourself the things that you need, you start to evolve. You start to heal those wounds, You start to be there for you when nobody else was there for you, and it's super powerful. So when you've got a regular habit of doing this, like I do, which is an important pillar of this, and you let yourself, when a thought comes up, I'm no good, or I'm tired, or this is never going to work out, whatever it may be, if you take some time, either right then or later on, where you say, what memory, what experience comes up around this? When did I feel this way before? And it'll tell you probably pretty quick. You'll remember pretty quick because you asked the question, a time that you were there before. And then you go back there in your mind, and now you be the person that you needed. You be the best friend. You be the kind parent. You be the romantic partner. You be that for yourself, because that's the most effective and quick way to do it, okay? So, a narcissist ruins your life because they imprint their wounds onto you, and you don't know where they come from, and you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to process it. Maybe your brain wasn't developed enough to process it. And then you carry it with you, and those wounds keep getting triggered and triggered and triggered and triggered over and over. And that's how a narcissist can ruin your life. How you can take back your life is to start valuing yourself enough to do your healing work, to start giving yourself what you need, that love and kindness and compassion, and not just in thought, but in action too. Maybe sitting outside with your feet in the grass. It's a very loving thing you can do for yourself. A very kind thing you can do is to sit outside with bare feet on the ground, because it makes you feel really good, okay? So that's how you start to take your life back from a narcissist. That's one of the other pillars, the healing of the deep wounds, the healing of the wounds that you don't know where they came from or what they mean. They just keep coming up and hijacking you. When you start looking at your thoughts, even the random thoughts, and tagging it back to a memory or an experience that you had, and back in time, going back in your own mind and experience, because your body doesn't know the difference between something you imagine and something that actually happens. Your nervous system doesn't know the difference. So you get to heal your past and change your past, because you only remember the last time you remembered something. You don't remember the actual memory. That's how we're wired. It's just how our brain is wired. So when you go back there and change the memory and be there for yourself and love yourself and be kind to yourself, you heal the wound and you empower and get your voice back, and you start to not feel so conflicted and hurt and reactionary and defensive and wounded. And because when you walk through life like that, protective, you miss out on your life. You miss out on connecting and loving and feeling good. Don't miss out anymore. Start doing this work, because you've got a lot of life ahead of you, and you need to make the most of it. And enough has been spent feeling hurt and wounded and conflicted. Enough. It's time to stop, okay? It's time to start loving yourself in the best way that you can, and to honor and recognize all those parts and pieces that you abandoned along the way because it just wasn't the right time and nobody could show you how to do it, okay? Now, if you feel stuck, I want you to message me. We'll set up a call. Don't worry about finances. Don't worry about time. The first call, yes, there's a charge, But if you work with me, we roll it into the package. You know, we sit there and figure out a strategic plan, whether you work with me once a month, whether you work with me every week, whether you work with me for a year, whether you work with me for 3 months. We'll find something that works with your time and works with your budget so you can actually move forward, okay? We'll figure something out. You don't have to do this alone. So, what should you do today? What would be your homework assignment? It would be to, as soon as you have a negative thought come up, to, if you can, right then, take the time and ask what other time you felt that way. If you can't now, do it at some point in time, lunchtime or while making dinner or something, where you can be present and go back there and change the past. It's very, very cool. If you listen to quantum physics, they say time doesn't exist anyways. That it's just one big field of everything. So who knows? Who knows what you're changing? Who knows what magic is happening? But I do know that when you do this work, you start to become happier, and your relationships become healthier, and your life becomes better, and you become the version of yourself that you're meant to be. Okay? So I hope you have a great Monday, and I will see you tomorrow morning. Talk to you later.